here's the thing. They went on 2 by 2, but they came out 4 by 4. They came out 8 by 8. Or they came out 16 by 16 or 32 by 32. Come on. They were fruitful on the ark. They went into the storm 2 by 2, but they came out of the storm 4 by 4. You're going into the storm 2 by 2, but you're going to come out the storm 4 by 4, 8 by 8, 16 by 16. Come on. There's something powerful in this moment that God is profoundly speaking into you and me. Because when we look at the storm, what did the storm do outside the ark? It destroyed everything and everyone. But inside the ark, multiplication was going on. Growth was happening. Something supernatural happens when the storm is raging outside, but there's peace on the inside. Today, when I say blind kind of faith, I'm not talking about believing because someone else told you to. I'm not talking about believing because your grandparents told you to. I'm not talking about believing because your parents dragged you to church when you were a kid. I'm not even talking about believing because you're scared of hell or some kind of judgment from God. I'm talking about faith that is real and is true, something that sees God and puts Him above everything else. Blind kind of faith is not because we don't experience Him, it's because we do experience Him and He's here right now. When I say blind kind of faith, I'm not talking about believing because of someone else. I'm talking about the kind of relationship that we can have with Jesus, a daily, day in, day out, moment in, moment out kind of relationship with Him that actually blinds our eyes to everything else other than what God is doing in our lives. Where He actually closes the window and shuts out the noise from all the work of the enemy and allows you to see with clarity His plan for your life. And to illustrate, I want to go to a man called Noah. Now, all of us should know that name immediately. If you grew up in church, and especially if you went to children's church, you know all about Noah. Noah was a man who built an ark because of a big flood that was coming. And so most of us know the story, but just to set the scene for anyone who doesn't know the story in and out, here's the whole thing. It happens in a book called Genesis, first book of the Bible. It's not the oldest book in the Bible, but it's the first book in the Bible. And this story happens just a little way in, right? Just after Adam and Eve, there's a few things that happen, and later on we get to this guy called Noah. And God looks at the earth. And I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but recently I have felt this way. God looks at the earth and He says, it is full of violence. Every thought in mankind's heart is evil. Every thought that they think, every action that they do, everything that's going on in the world is evil. And God, it says that God regrets making humanity. Now, we're not going to go too deep into that today. We're going to leave that as a shallow statement. We can go deeper into that another time. But God regrets making and creating humanity, and He says He's going to wipe humanity from the face of the earth, except for this guy, Noah. And so He says to Noah, I want you to build an ark. And also just to help you put you in the mindset of this guy called Noah, at this point in time, according to what's written in the book of Genesis, there was no rain yet. It had never rained on the earth. It speaks about a firmament or a covering that was around the earth. And what would happen is in the mornings and the evenings, there would be dew that would form on the ground and it would water the earth. And there were still seas and lakes and all of these things. But at that time, there had never been rain on the earth. And God says to Noah, we talk about blind kind of faith, He says to him, it's going to rain. And it's going to rain a lot. The heavens are going to open and water is going to come down onto the earth. Now you can imagine being Noah in that time. Every person he spoke to, because he knows this is from God. Have you ever been in a place where you feel like, man, I know this is from God, and everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I know it's from God? This is exactly how Noah felt. Everyone he speaks to, He's like, it's going to rain. And they're like, what's rain? He's like, well, water's going to come from the sky. Oh, really, Noah? Water. From the sky. Okay. And so he starts building this massive ark. And it's this huge project that takes years to do. And every time people walk past him, they're like, Noah, they mock him. And you can imagine. He's this crazy guy building this massive boat. For what reason? Because water is going to come out the sky and flood the earth. No one believes him. No one does. But he knows. Come on, you know. You know the voice of God. You've heard his voice before. You know what it sounds like, and you know where he's taking you. Don't ever let someone's naysaying voice stop you from entering into God's plan for your life. Because just like God was faithful to Noah, he will be faithful to you. The story goes on, and we know how it ends. The flood comes. And people cry out for Noah to open the door, but you know that Noah never sealed that door? God sealed it. And when God seals a door, no one can open that door, right? No one can. It's true for your life as well. There's lots of nuggets today. Write a lot of things down. It's fine. When God closes the door, no man can open it. And we know the story from there. The Bible describes a worldwide massive global flood. And from that place, it rains, it says, for 150 days. At this point in time, we can look at it as like the water was coming down for a long, long time. For months, they were in this ark. And the ark was picked up and it floated. And we also know in the story that there was animals that came onto the ark 2 by 2. And the whole purpose of that was so that the animals could be replenished on the earth. It's an unbelievable story. It's an amazing story. And it comes to a climax and an end in Genesis chapter 8. If you've got your Bibles, you're welcome to turn there. Genesis chapter 8 from verse 15, we're going to read. But after months and months on this boat called the ark, finally the waters begin to recede and the rain stops and the flood starts to go away. And eventually the ark rests on the top of a mountain called Mount Ararat. And from there, we get to this point where in Genesis chapter 8, they now begin to leave the ark. And I want to read this together. Genesis 8 from verse 15 says, Then God said to Noah, Come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number on it. So Noah came out, together with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives, all the animals and all the creatures that move along the ground and all the birds, everything that moves on the land came out of the ark, one kind after another. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood. And never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. I was listening to a message from a pastor, and he was talking about Noah and this particular incident. And as soon as he did, something dropped in my mind that I thought was pretty profound. And I don't know if you picked up as I was reading that, something about this story that confuses me a little bit. And I'm going to bring you in. That's all beautiful. The things God says are never again, makes his promise beautiful. The thing that really sticks out to me is Noah built an altar and sacrificed animals on it. Where did the animals come from? Never thought about that before, have you? 2, right, went onto the ark. 2 came out so that they can replenish the earth. So where did the animals come from that he sacrificed? Well, the answer is actually very simple. That some of the animals were fruitful and multiplied on the ark, right? They were there for months, doing nothing. Bored. Okay, let's move on real quick. Here's the point. There were animals born on the ark. And I thought this was, because for a second I was like, where did they come from? What's going on? And immediately God was like, relax, it's okay. I don't know if you've ever had that moment when you read something in the Bible and you're like, and God is like, relax, it's okay. I'll help you through it. Here's the thing. They went on 2 by 2, but they came out 4 by 4. Or they came out 8 by 8. Or they came out 16 by 16. Or 32 by 32. Come on. They were fruitful on the ark. They went into the storm 2 by 2, but they came out of the storm 4 by 4. You're going into the storm 2 by 2, but you're going to come out the storm 4 by 4, 8 by 8, 16 by 16. Come on. There's something powerful in this moment that God is profoundly speaking into you and me. Because when we look at the storm, what did the storm do outside the ark? It destroyed everything and everyone. But inside the ark, multiplication was going on. Growth was happening. Something supernatural happens when the storm is raging outside, but there's peace on the inside. I say this all the time. You're going to get bored of me saying it. It's fine. Jesus was asleep in the boat while the life-threatening storm raged around and pummeled that boat to the point where these battle-hardened sailors and fishermen were fearing for their lives. Jesus was not just chilling, he was asleep. Because where there is grace, even in the storm, you remain fruitful. Come on. Unbelievable. You know, sometimes we're looking at our lives and we're looking at the storm raging around us, thinking about how little we have. Fearful over what that storm is going to take from us. And I want you to put yourself in Moses' shoes for a moment. You know, I don't know exactly how that ark had, whether it had windows and where they were. You know, while that rain was battering down, if there were windows, they were definitely shut. But after a while, you start to open. You want to see what's going on outside. And here's the reality for all of us. Depending where our focus is, we're either going to see the life-threatening storm or we're going to see the growth that God is doing inside of our lives. And when we're looking out that window, focusing on the storm, that's all we can see. And that's all we can believe. When we look out and we see that out there the economy is crashing, and out there businesses are failing, and out there marriages are failing, and out there kids are getting lost, and out there there's all kinds of damage and brokenness. There's a storm raging around us, but in the middle of that storm there is peace and there is grace and there is goodness because our God is with us. We are in an ark, we are sheltered, we are protected, and in that place we have the choice to look out to the storm and to have our eyes fixed on that, or we can turn around and see what God is doing in our lives, that there is multiplication happening in the storm. I want to say it this way: you are still fruitful in the storm. You are still fruitful in the storm. And some of us were waiting for the storm to end so we can go out and plant in the place that we know fruit comes from. But it actually comes in the middle of the storm. And here's where it gets amazing, because in the middle of the storm, when it's crashing for everyone else, it's prospering for you. And when that happens, the whole world turns around and says, what do you have that I don't have? And we turn and we say, it's Jesus. Because I didn't build it. It's by grace through faith. And so today we're asking for a blind kind of faith. Not a faith that says I can't ask questions. Let me tell you that when you are in that storm, you're going to ask questions. If you've ever found yourself in a storm like that, some of us are right now, and I want to be sensitive to that. Right now, you're in the middle of what feels like a life-threatening storm. And it's not fun and games for you. It's not a nice sermon. This is real. Right now, you feel like this storm is going to take you out. I get it. I'm with you right now. It's not easy in that moment to just say, okay, God, what are you doing in my life? But here's the thing. When your provision came from what happened outside the ark, that's where you look to find provision. But what was God doing? Behind you, inside the ark. There's multiplication going on that you have no idea about until you turn around and you see what God is doing. Today, I want you to look again. Today, I want you to turn around. I want you to ask God for a blind kind of faith, blind to the storm. You see, the storm's going to rage. This world is going to be full of brokenness. Even in our families, even in our workplaces, there are going to be challenges. We've said this over and over again in our church. We don't serve a God who said everything will just work out. He does say that He'll work everything for your good, but He doesn't say that everything will be good. He says He'll use it all to make your life good. But there will be challenges. And today we need a blind kind of faith that doesn't see the storm anymore, but turns around and sees the fruitfulness in the middle of the storm. Noah had a choice of what he wanted to see. He had to choose, do I stare at the storm or do I look inside? He could have looked out that window at any time and what he would have seen was devastation and brokenness. Or he could look inside and see the growth. We're looking out at storms, how dangerous it is. While we're doing that, we're missing what God is doing. Don't miss what God is doing. Come on, I'll say it again. Don't miss what God is doing. Don't miss what God is doing. He's busy. He's at work. You think, God, right here, this is where I need you to come through. I need you to come through here. I need you to come through here. This is my storm. This is my tragedy. This is my brokenness. And we're stuck looking at this and God is saying, I'm doing the work here. And what you do over here is going to impact and affect that. But turn around and see that you are still fruitful in the storm.